What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to show you how we can integrate Braintree payments into a Laravel app. Now if you're not familiar with Braintree, they are an online payment processor similar to Stripe. The one major advantage they have over Stripe in my opinion is their PayPal integration. PayPal purchased Braintree in 2013, and so it makes sense that PayPal is one of their form of payments. In my last video, I took a look at integrating PayPal into a Laravel app, so check that out if you're interested in using PayPal's native API. Braintree's API is much simpler in my opinion and makes for a better developer experience. And if you're integrating PayPal as well as credit cards, then there's only one checkout flow in your code, which makes updating and maintaining your code much easier. Shout out to one of my subs, VC Matt SUCR, who's been suggesting Braintree for PayPal integration for the longest time. So I finally gave it a shot. So the first thing you're going to need is a Braintree sandbox account where you can play around with everything in test mode, which will be very similar to a real-life production environment. So if you scroll down on their main page, there is a button to try out the sandbox. So here I am logged into my dashboard. The next thing you want to set up is your API keys. So if you just go into settings, API keys, you can set it up there. And if you want PayPal integration, you're going to have to link your PayPal account, at least your PayPal sandbox account, to this account. So if you go to settings, processing, and you go to PayPal options here, you can fill in your PayPal details here. And you can get this from logging into developer.paypal.com. Again, check out my last video if you want more details, but just make a developer account. And then you have to make a REST API, I believe. Let me just log in, show you guys. So once you're in your PayPal dashboard, just go to your sandbox account. And you're going to want to use the business sandbox account. So this one in my case for the email. So that's what we have here. That email and the client ID and this client secret comes from the app that you made. So in our case, it's the REST API. So right here, just grab the credentials from here and then put it in Braintree. And then that should work. Just update it. And then that should integrate PayPal, which we'll look at in a second. Again, take a look at my PayPal video if you want more details. Okay, now that everything is set up, let's make use of the PHP example they have in this repo over here. So it's just vanilla PHP, it's not Laravel, but it's a pretty good example of using their drop-in UI. So let's take a look at this. We'll play around, get it working, make sure we can process payments in our sandbox, and then we'll clone this. We'll clone it into a Laravel app. So let me just copy this and let's go ahead and clone it. And let's go into it, Braintree, PHP, and let's check out what the steps are. Composer install. Okay, what's next? And this is just running a server. There's a public HTML directory, which is the publicly hosted file. So let's see if this works. Okay, let's click on that. Okay, we get an error because we have to put in our API key credentials. So back into our docs here. Yeah, we missed this step over here. So let's open this up. I'm going to open this up in another tab. And let's open up in Sublime. And you can see there is an example environment file. So let's just copy this, duplicate this, and let's put it in the real.env file. And just paste in your Braintree credentials in here. And then that should fix the error. Okay, so my credentials are in there now. Let's see if this works. And there you go. There is the drop-in UI. So there's two ways to integrate Braintree. There's the drop-in UI, which is the easiest way, and they just have a default styling here. You can set up whichever payments you want, but you don't have too much control over how it looks. And there's also the hosted solution, which you have more control over how it looks. So we'll take a look at both, but let's just get this working. So let's try both. Let's try a credit card and let's try PayPal. So let's use the standard 42. And let's just put something in the future and whatever number, and this should work. And it goes through and there's a success. Here's all the details of the transaction and the response. And if you go into Braintree, into our dashboard, you'll see, if you go into transactions, actually, I have some test data, which I was playing around with earlier. But if you just submit this, you'll see this one right here, which is the one we just did right now. Awesome. Also, let's try out the PayPal integration, see how that works. Let's do another one. Let's do PayPal, and we get this PayPal checkout button, which looks familiar if you looked at the last video. And I'm just going to enter my PayPal sandbox details here, my test account. So it's buyer. And there we go. Let's just say our bank account and agree and continue. And now we can test our transaction. And that seems to have failed. I'm not sure why. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so it shows here. Let's drill down and see what's going on. So it says processor network unavailable. It seems to be an issue with PayPal. So yeah, I think it's an issue with PayPal. Let's try it again. Again, this is what I'm talking about or most developers talk about when they say PayPal has buggy APIs. Stuff like this that works sometimes and doesn't work other times. So let's give that one more try. Okay, it doesn't seem to work. Well, that sucks. Just trust me when I say that it does work, because I was working with it all day yesterday. And let's show you. I'll show you some successful transactions using PayPal just to prove it to you. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of PayPal ones here, and settled means it worked. So yeah, I think PayPal's having issues. At least you can see it here. Let's check the status again. Yeah. I definitely think this is a PayPal issue. Okay, let's quickly go over this diagram and see how this works. If you're familiar with how Stripe works, it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. Okay, so number one, your app or front end requests a client token from your server in order to initialize the client SDK. So this is your browser. It requests a token from your server, in our case, our PHP app. And this generates a token which says you can use the Braintree API. So it returns a token and we can use this token. So let's take a look at where that's happening in the code. Right here in public HTML index PHP. So this is basically this form here. This form. So in the JavaScript, here it is right here. So client token, it's making a call to the gateway client token, and it's generating a token, and we're going to use this token to make a request to the Braintree server. Okay, so that's that step. Number two, your server generates and sends. Okay, we looked over that. So once the client SDK is initialized and the customer has submitted payment information, then the SDK communicates that information and returns a payment method nonce. So what that's saying is, after you fill in these details, say for the card, then you get what's called a payment nonce, which is similar to a token, but it has the details of this information. So this, And 1, 2, 3. So, and once that's filled out, you have to send this to the server. So where's that happening? That is happening right here. So there is a hidden nonce field in our form, which is right here. And we are populating that value with the payload nonce and then submitting the form. So that's exactly what's happening there. And then our server code receives the nonce from the client and then creates a transaction using the server-side SDK. So that is in checkout.php. This is how you make a transaction sale. Here's the nonce, it's getting it from the post variables. And in this case, it's getting the amount from the post variable as well. And here is where it's either successful and then just redirects to this page, or if there's an error, then it spits out the errors. So yeah, that's basically how it works. Okay, so with that knowledge, let's go ahead and port all this over to a Laravel app. It's going to be very similar because it's just PHP, but we'll work with it in a Laravel app. And then we'll take a look at the hosted solution, which allows us to use our own fields and make it more customizable. Okay, so I have a brand new Laravel app scaffolded out. So let's go into our Laravel app. And the first thing I want to do is go into config services and set up our credentials in here. So I'm just going to paste in a code snippet to save time, but set all of this up in your environment file, just like we did in the PHP example. But yeah, now it's in a Laravel app. So I'm going to do that behind the scenes and I'll be back when it's done. Okay, so I've added it to the environment file. And now the next thing I want to do is just delete some of this stuff here. I'm just going to delete this. And this is where the drop-in UI form is going to go. So form goes here. Okay, cool. So the next thing I'm going to do is install the PHP SDK. So composer require Braintree / Braintree PHP. Okay, that's done. Let's go ahead and grab the form from the PHP example and just dump it into here. So here's the PHP example. I'm just going to grab the form, so all of this. Grab this and paste it into here. And let's take out the action for now, put that back in a second. And everything else looks fine. Let me just indent it. Okay, see if the form renders at least. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can get the drop-in form rendering. So let's go back to our PHP example. And let's grab the JavaScript. So we need this. We also need all of this script stuff. And this demo.js is nothing. This is just for the focus styles, so we don't need that. So back into here. Let's just paste all the script stuff in here. Okay. But this stuff, this gateway, where's that coming from? So that gateway comes from this Braintree init file. So let's go into includes and then Braintree init. So let's just grab all this. And then let's go back into our Laravel app and let's go into our routes file. And let's just paste it in here. Okay. Let's indent that. But instead of this, we're going to get it from the config. So it's going to be config. And then it's going to be services.braintree. This one is an environment. And let me just do the other ones quickly. Okay. And then we need to generate the token. So I believe that happens in index. Where's the token here? So yeah, right here. So this right here is what will generate the token, and then we'll pass it through. So let's generate the token right here. Let's say token. Okay. And let's just pass that in here. Move this up. And let's do token. And then now in our welcome blade here, we can just do this. Remove this. We can just do token. Okay. And do I have this payment form on the form? I do. So yeah, that should render out the drop-in UI form. And there it is. Let me just make this bigger. Okay, so there is the card and there's the PayPal. Okay, so that's just the front end. We also have to recreate the backend part. So let's go ahead and do that. So back into our routes file. Again, I'm just going to chuck it into a closure here. So let's make a post. Let's call it checkout. And this one needs request parameters. So let's grab the request and let's import that. Okay, so let's take a look at checkout PHP here. And let's grab all of this to here, up to here. Let's put it into our closure. And let me just re-indent this. Okay. And we're also going to need the credentials, so I'm just going to duplicate this. Okay. And we are no longer getting it from the post variable. We're just getting it from the request coming in. So we'll just request. I think that will work too, but I'm used to doing it like this as an object, as a property on the object. But you can do it like that too, I think. And I'm going to remove this check because later on we're going to check negative cases. And for testing negative cases, I found that when I did this earlier, this check was interfering with it. So let's just check if it's just a success. And this, let's do the equivalent in Laravel, which is just, let me just comment this out. And we will return back with, let's say, success message. And let's just say transaction successful. The ID is, and let's append transaction ID. Okay. And for the error case, let's just remove these two lines. And I'm just going to paste in some code to save time. And it's the same thing, but we are returning the message from the result message if there's an error. So let's do that. And I'm also going to make sure, let's make sure to say this, but I'm going to make sure that, let me just fix this. Make sure that we're outputting those errors in our view here. So I'm just going to paste in some code that just checks the session if there's an error, and it will alert it. This is Bootstrap, but I'm not importing Bootstrap here, so you'll just see a plain message if there's an error or if there's success. Oh yeah, and we have to update our form here. Where's our form? Right here. And I think we named it checkout. We did name it checkout. So let's go to checkout. Okay, so let's save this and let's see if everything works. All right, let's change this to 13 and let's enter in some details here. Let's try the credit card first. I'll try PayPal again. Hopefully that error is fixed. 420. Okay, test. Oh, yes. So we get a nice 419 error. We need the CSRF. Where's my form? Right here. So, okay, let's try it again. All right, let's test it. And there we go, transaction successful. 6v1 is the ID. Let's see if we get that. So yeah, there it is right there. So we have it working in a Laravel app. I'm quickly going to try the PayPal again. Maybe those issues are fixed. So we'll see. And they are not fixed, but at least we get to try out our negative case here, at least one of the negative cases, and there is that error message there. So if you look at the transaction that did work, you'll see that there's some information here, but I feel like that's not enough information. I'd like to store some information about the customer as well, at least their email address. So how do we do that? So if you go into the PHP SDK documentation, you'll see that there are extra fields you can pass in through to this method. So to this sale method right here, which can capture more information if you like. So what I'm interested in is the customer. So you can add billing information here if you like, but I think the next one's customer. Credit card. Here we go, customer. And I just want to add an email, first name, and last name. So I'm going to do that here, right here. So I'm just going to do customer, and that's an array as well. Make sure we have the comma. And let's just grab all those fields. First name, and I'm just going to hard code it because I don't have text fields for them. Last name, Stark, and it's just hard code an email in here. Say Tony@avengers.com, and that should do it. And we should see this in the backend. So let's try again. One more time. Let me just refresh this. Let's say 18 card. Okay, so that went through. 5FZ. Let's check that one out. And let's see if that information is in there, and there it is there. Cool. Okay, so let's test some negative cases out. So when we expect an error, we already sort of saw this because PayPal's not working, but if we enter an amount between this, then this will simulate a limit exceeded error, I think. So let's try again, but let's hard code, or not hard code, let's put an amount of something in between this range. Let's say 2001. So back into here, let me just refresh this. Let's say 2001 card 4242. And let's go ahead and test this and see if we get an error. And there we go. We get an insufficient funds error. And if we take a look at the back end, there should be more details here. So you go, processor declined, 2001. So there's the error message there. Cool. Okay, so let's quickly look at how to do hosted fields. So hosted fields allow you to have more customization control over how your form looks. If for whatever reason you don't like how the drop-in UI looks, then you'd be making use of hosted forms. So yeah, the drop-in UI, if you don't like this, then you have to make use of hosted forms, which is a bit more work. So I added this generic bootstrap form and made a new route for it. And obviously there's a new view for it. And how hosted works is it takes control over the sensitive credit card information, in our case, these ones, and then it embeds its own fields in an iframe, so credit card numbers never hit your own server, and it only hits Braintree servers. So it's similar to how Stripe Elements works. So into our code, this is all I've added. Like I said, it's just a generic bootstrap form with some styling, so it looks decent. And that's it. So let's go ahead and integrate hosted forms, hosted fields on this. So back into this. And so this is an example of a form, but we already have the form, and we just want the JavaScript portion. So I'm just going to grab all this, all of the script stuff, and I'm going to paste it into our code right here. Okay. And I think our form is called payment form. So let's just change that. Double check. Yeah, payment form. Okay. And here is where the token goes, and we can do the same thing like we did before. We can just do token. And that's because I'm doing the same thing here, and I'm just passing in the token here. Okay. And what else? So here is where we have to define containers, and what the JavaScript is going to do, what Braintree's JavaScript is going to do is embed its own fields in here. So let's go ahead and do that. And we don't need this. Okay, we'll get to this part later. This is where you just send it to the server. Okay, so let's go back up here to where our form is defined. And this is the row with the, sorry, not this one, credit card, expiry, and CVC. So this row right here, which is where we want to embed the fields from Braintree. So let's go ahead and just copy that, the whole row. I'm just going to copy this and just paste it underneath. And this is the credit card. I'm just going to remove this stuff. And what was it named? Credit card, I think. With an ID of credit card. No, it's card number, CVV, and expiration date. All right, so let's do that. Card number. I think I can leave the class name. Card number. And we'll just leave that for now. And let's do the same for this. So expiration date. And let's remove this. And the CVV. Okay, and let's remove this. Okay, let's see if that works. See if Braintree is embedding its fields in here. And it is. The style doesn't look right, but these are the fields coming from Braintree. So as you can see, you can specify the placeholder in the JavaScript over here. So right now, this is the placeholder. So if you type over it, types, so you can see it down here. But obviously the CSS doesn't look right. So all we have to do is in our own CSS, we just have to style this so it looks like the rest of our inputs. So for example, if I just go up to my styles here, if I just do card number, let's say background white, then that should change it to white. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but it did change it to white. And yeah, so we just have to look at the CSS for these inputs and add them here. So I've already done that. And I'm just going to paste in a small snippet of CSS just so these fields coming from Braintree look like our own fields. So it's only a few rules here. And if I refresh, there you go. You can barely tell the difference. Let's just put the labels back. So where are the labels? I'm just going to grab this. Let's put it, I think, above this maybe. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so it looks fine. And I'll do the same for expiry and CVV. Expiry. And CV, let's call it CVV since they call it CVV. Let's just say CVV. Okay. So that looks good. Now you can even take it further and hook into events if you want. That's mainly for validation and for making it look pretty and having a good user experience, but I'm not going to do that for this demo. There's already some built-in validation. For example, well, 4 is valid, but if I start with something else, I think 5 is valid too, but there you go. If it's red, if it's not a valid credit card number, it will be red. If the expiry is something in the past, say 09, 2018, then it's red. So there's some built-in validation there. Okay, so let's go back into our code and let's see if we can submit this. There's one more thing we have to do. As you can see, this hidden nonce field is still here. So we have to do the same thing in the other example where we just have to do this. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's just put it under here. And that should work, hopefully. Do I have a CSR field for my form? Where is my form? I do. This is the correct endpoint. And it's still making use of the endpoint we made from the last example. So we should be good. Okay, so let's test this out. Do I have session? Yeah, I do. Okay, so that should work still. Let's go ahead and give it a try. And I'm just going to pass in this amount here, so $11. Okay, let's submit the payment. And there you go, transaction successful. So A48, if we go into here, we should see that go through. There it is right there. But now we are using hosted fields, so we can customize the fields however we like. Okay, I'm going to try PayPal one more time because I really want to make this work, at least to show you guys that it works. Okay, so back to here with the drop-in form, PayPal. And it still doesn't work, unfortunately. Oh yeah, so for the hosted fields, you can also have a PayPal payment here. I don't think I'm going to do that in the video because it's getting kind of long already, but I will include that in the code where you can also add a PayPal button to hosted fields. So there you have it, guys. We managed to take a look at Laravel and Braintree payments, and definitely an alternative to Stripe as well as PayPal if you don't want to use PayPal's native APIs. Like I said, Braintree is great if you want to integrate both credit cards and PayPal. One of the, it's not really a con, but one of the barriers to entry though is I think you need like the vetting process for having a production account is, so let me go to my country here. Yeah, so the vetting process is much more strenuous than Stripe is. For Stripe, all you have to do is enter a bank account and then you can accept payments. But for Braintree, I haven't done it yet, but I'm probably going to apply for a production account. But as you can see here, they want all the information on your business. I guess they want to make sure you're legit and not running an illegal company. But yeah, it's much more strenuous than Stripe. And yeah, that's another barrier to entry. But once you get past that, I think it is a great solution if you're accepting both credit cards and PayPal, and you definitely should. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.